Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Monday, the 2nd of October. We are in October, my favorite month. I love October. Um, I'm thinking a lot about the use of words lately, and in particular, the different ways that we think about words. And a word that really hit home for me this past weekend, was the word appropriate, also pronounced appropriate. So a little bit background. On Saturday, I went to Wetaskiwin, which is a small town, little city in mid-Alberta, mid sort of south of Edmonton, northwest of where I live in Wainwright. And I went for Orange Shirt Day ceremonies. And it was a beautiful day. Got there a little bit chilly, but lots of people turned out for a smudging and then a pipe ceremony that I was invited, like we're allowed to participate in, which was my first time. And then a walk where we walked, all of us gathered, walked from the park where we had gathered to a cairn to acknowledge the need for truth and healing and reconciliation, hence the Orange Shirt Day. And then we walked back to the park, and there were some other things happening, but I had to go on. I had to meet with somebody, but a funeral, actually two people, but funerals, both in Wetaskiwin, which worked out really well. But when I was meeting the one person, we were in the Boston Pizza because I had to get some lunch. And it was a halfway point from where she lived to between me and Wainwright. So we were meeting there. And as we were getting up to leave, about 2:30, there was a First Nations or Indigenous family sitting at one of the tables. I'd taken off my orange shirt. I was wearing a clergy shirt like this, and I was wearing my ribbon skirt. And the guest I was with walked, so she went to the washroom, and I was standing up to leave, and the young man of the family backed his chair out a little bit, and he said, "Excuse me, where did you get that?" And he indicated my skirt. So, well, my ribbon skirt? Oh, I was given that by an elderly woman and an older woman from the First Nation at Frog Lake. It was a gift given to me. I said, it was probably the most meaningful gift I've ever been given before. And that's we had a few minor back and forth, like a little bit of conversation, but the conversation itself wasn't exactly the issue that brought something to mind. It was thinking about what's appropriate, and on the other hand, appropriated. You see, the young man was not very kind to me he wasn't rude, but he wasn't being very kind to me in the way he spoke to me to begin with. He asked me where did I get that, indicating my skirt. I realized fairly quickly that he seemed to think, up and appropriately so, that I had appropriated their culture. See, ribbon skirts are not meant to just be bought off the shelf off the rack at Walmart. Ribbon skirts are important to Indigenous culture. They have a history and a meaning, and almost every time a person has a ribbon skirt, it has been given to them by someone for a purpose or with a meaning, and there's a relationship behind it. And this young man was asking me a very big question. First of all, by asking me what was that, where did I get that? I think he was testing me to discover whether I just thought it was a cool looking skirt, or if I knew that it was a ribbon skirt. And I, passed the first part of the test. I knew that it was a ribbon skirt. And then by explaining where I got it, that it was an elder who had given it to me from a First Nation, then he understood that it wasn't trying to appropriate anything, that I was wearing a gift given to me. Next question might be for him, was it appropriate that I wear the gift that I had been given and had not appropriated? The answer for me came, my sense that they understood, that I understood, came when I said about the elderly woman, the elder, presenting it to me as a gift, and that it was probably one of the most meaningful gifts I've ever received. Because the young woman's face, the couple was maybe 24, 25 years old, they had a little girl. But the look on her face when I said it was a gift and that it was more meaningful to me than pretty much anything else that had been given me, she had a look on her face and she said yes. That's right. It was important to them that I not simply be one of these people appropriating their culture because isn't it the cool thing to do? And I admit, we have been doing that for years. When I was a kid, we were driving through the States, and my sister was a master at accents. And wherever we go, she'd pick it up and she'd talk like that. And it was kind of funny in some cases. And in a couple of instances, it's almost seemed like she was making fun of people. She wasn't. She was just appreciating and participating. She was maybe 8 years old. But for other people, they may think, and might rightfully think, you are mocking us. You are coming into our culture, our environment, and you are saying and doing things that are not appropriate because that's our culture. What do you know of it? And considering the day, the reason I was wearing was the 30th of September, and it was Orange Shirt Day, the day of truth and reconciliation and healing here in Canada. I think that those folks at the table at Bastard Pizza had every right to ask me those questions and to wonder and then to be able to know that, okay, it's okay. And he asked me why I was wearing it. He did ask me after that. I said, why I was wearing it. I said, well, I've just come from the orange shirt ceremonies. He said, oh, the healing and reconciliation ceremonies. Yes. Because for that family, for members of the Indigenous culture, Indigenous life, world, that day may seem like it's Orange Shirt Day for Canadians, but for them it is a day when Canadians are honoring their promise through the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action to work toward healing and reconciliation. It isn't something that can be named Orange Shirt Day and thrown away. It is something that needs to stand for something. And I found that to be a very, very powerful moment. The whole day was filled with moments I'm still processing. Participating in the pipe ceremony, the smudging. Smudging is a beautiful thing for me. And it always is very meaningful for me. And every time meaningful in a different way. But that was the first time I was invited into the teepee with other women and with a couple of elders who explained what they were doing a little bit and then showed us how to participate in the pipe ceremony and then allowed us to do that, to participate in certain ways. We were told not to do certain things, but we were allowed to do this. And it was really powerful. But I think the most powerful thing for me on Saturday was that family who had the courage to step up and say to a white woman wearing a collar, basically, who do you think you are and what are you doing? But who were also willing to listen to the response. Maybe we each learned something. But I learned a lot about what's appropriate. It's not appropriate for me to run around wearing my ribbon skirt just because I like feels like a day to wear it. There are certain times when it is appropriate for me to wear my ribbon skirt. But it's also important to recognize that I did not appropriate my ribbon skirt from another's culture. It was given to me as gift. I think we all have to be very careful about that we don't just pick up on parts of aspects of other people's cultures and appropriate it because we think it's cool. Not just Indigenous, but anything. We have to be really careful. And maybe that comes back to recognizing our own cultures and maybe having some pride in those and not needing so much to find our identity in places where we have no identity. Maybe that's another talk for another day. I'm not sure. But think about that today. Appropriate versus appropriate. Have a great day. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel.